We will now move into our ministerial panel, where we're discussing tourism resilience and recovery, policies, strategies, and the way forward. And we're going to be inviting our tourism ministers, Honorable Filda Nani Kereng, Minister of Environment and Tourism, Botswana, to come on the podium, on the stand. Honorable Penina Malonzo, Cabinet Secretary, Minister of Tourism, Wildlife and Heritage, Kenya. Honorable Luz Curta Cassandra Francois, Minister of Tourism for Haiti. Minister. And we have a replacement. We are asking Minister Kenneth Bryan, or Minister of Tourism for the Cayman Islands and Chairman of the Caribbean Tourism Organization, to join us. Thank you, Minister. And our moderator for this session is none other than Mr. Greenberg. Peter Greenberg, Emmy Award-winning investigative reporter. Mr. Greenberg, please join us. Thank you very much.
Well, good morning, everybody. Good morning, everybody. Energy in the room. Okay, good. Oh, okay. I'm ready for that. Your Excellencies, thank you so much for joining us. The name of this panel, as you know, is Tourism Resilience and Recovery, Policy, Strategies, and the Way Forward. Of course, I'll add to that in a world of disruption, a world that was disrupted before COVID-19, a world that continues to be disrupted. And as Minister Bartlett and I talked about the other day, it's not just about the capacity to recover, it's the capacity to anticipate, and then the methodology that drives both. One of the things that we've talked about is in any crisis, it's communication. But we're not talking about external communication. We'll get to that later. We're talking about internal communication. To what extent are the governments talking within ministries, within departments, that really will help you to anticipate a crisis to better adapt when it happens? Not if it happens, when it happens. And one of the things that I noticed in terms of how things have changed a little bit, and I refer now to the minister from Botswana, is that your title is not just Minister of Tourism, your title is Minister of Environment and Tourism. So you already have two umbrellas to work with right there. So you're already having a conversation with yourself as opposed to just waiting for the other ministers to get back to you. Tell me how that works. It's already on? Oh, it's not.
Hello?
Yeah, you are now.
Is it on? Thank you very much, and happy Resilience Day. How is it so nice to spend it in the country that birthed it? It's a privilege to be in Jamaica this very time. And we have decided to be bright today, the sunshine, the sand, and the beauty of our biodiversity. Moderator, it is important for me to highlight that I manage environment and tourism in one ministry, because our tourism is anchored in natural resources, not just diamonds, but wildlife, flora and fauna. This is what we have been selling since independence. And it is important to say, in addition to the risks that we are discussing in terms of how we should build resilience to contain those risks affecting or risks directed to wildlife, including wildlife mortalities, like we had elephant mortalities in 2020 that you helped us with. In addition to engaging media locally, where we work together as ministries in terms of establishing development networks and development processes through national development technical or thematic working groups. I manage 6 other ministries that have to do with environment, water, health, agriculture, and so forth. And intra-communication happens within that space in national planning and reactions and responses. But most importantly, international communication was important for us to ensure that while elephants were dying, the uncertainties that we had to face, we managed to ensure that we get the international global media to help us to set the right narrative and what we were doing to contain the problem, including all the research that we had to do. It was important because it was risky not to give the positive narrative and show what we are doing. If people, tourists, were to hear that elephants were dying in Botswana, we are going to lose tourism. So thank you for being one of the journalists that helped us to send the right narrative, and we managed to contain and preserve, the tourism product.
Well, you mentioned the elephant situation in 2018, 2019. The real interesting thing is that everybody on this stage has shared a crisis or has had a crisis. right? We had the 2013, the mall shooting in Nairobi, act of terrorism. I actually happened to be at the mall that day, so obviously I was the first person covering it and dodging bullets. But I will tell you, 79 people were killed, more than 200 wounded. In 2010 and again in 2021, the earthquakes in Haiti. I covered that story as well. There's not a pattern here, by the way. But 2010, a human loss of staggering proportion. Another earthquake in August of 21, right? And of course, we have weather. Weather in Jamaica, weather in the Cayman Islands, inevitable weather, but that's changing in its patterns, changing in its ferocity, changing in its frequency. So for all of those things, I guess the real question is, and I'll throw it over to you, madam, you already had an experience with the earthquake in 2010. You had another experience in 2021. Is there a playbook? Is there basically a handbook, an MO, if you will, of preparedness? Do you have a crisis management program in place?
Thank you for this question. But first, allow me to thank Minister Bartlett for inviting me at this great conference on the crisis management. That, as you know, Haiti has facing a lot during those past 40 years as natural disaster and political instability. So to this crisis we are facing as earthquake, as you mentioned, in 2010 and 2021, the government has did a lot to bring tourism back in Haiti between 2012 and in 2013. But Haiti, I can say, is naturally, resilience is a second nature in Haiti. The people in Haiti are really, really strong. They really they have hope for better tomorrow. But the government, what we did, we are now working on bringing back, restore safety and stability. But in the Ministry of Tourism, we are working to boost the tourism back. So we are working with what we have in terms of destination. Everybody in the world think that tourism is interrupted in Haiti. But the issue you have is mostly in the capital. But we still have other destination has capitation where tourism is growing. So we are can capitalize on this destination. And we are trying to give access, to bring access to other destinations we can develop. And also we are creating, well, we want to create other niche, I can say, I'm sorry, because, you know, my country is French speaking, so I have to take in English now. So, as I told you, we are working on other strategy, like to creating jobs, to give access, and to build capacity, new capacity in human resources as well. So, to help to meet the need of all operators what we have, the ministry have to create, to take some measures, like create a new a center of crisis management. For example, I was delegated by the Prime Minister after the earthquake in 2021 to go to the NIP department. So the Minister of Tourism, as the Minister of Tourism, so I saw that it's really important for the tourism to be aware of all crisis management process you have to do when you have crisis. So I'm trying to see with my dear friend Bardet if we can put a center crisis management in Haiti to help to prevent those kind of problems, to put in place some procedure to can say that respond effectively and fastly to those effects, shocks of disaster or other problem.
An action plan. An action plan. Exactly. Minister Bryant, in the Cayman Islands, obviously weather is always a factor. Do you have an action plan now?
Well, we always have, not to the magnitude of what we're trying to accomplish here. at a global tourism conference. But we have our natural disasters. We have a committee called NOAC, which covers all kind of disasters, whether it's storms, whether it's earthquakes, whether it's plane crash. And I think all of us would have something similar to that in our countries. But I was trying to recognize exactly what a topic that we were trying to cover and what we were talking about going forward. And I think that's what and forgive me for the acronym again, GTRCMC is trying to accomplish. Because when I think about the 5 points that the minister has highlighted, he's trying to create a structure upon which we can all operate under. And I personally think that every country should have a brand such as this within their country so we can all be working together to create the plans. Because when I think about my hazard management back home, that would be part of some of the areas he highlighted. He highlighted 5 of them, and if my memory serves me well, I was just trying to write them down to management, recovery, thrive, survive, and mitigate. Now,
Thrive comes last.
Thrive comes last, yes.
Just thought I'd mention it.
But the recovery part, I think many of us have already had that covered, because we all have some sort of recovery team of emergency for any kind of thing. That's a natural thing that we do. But we don't cover all 5 points, and I think what he and his team has been able to develop is an organized structure of, from the start, predicting it, to all the way to recovering from it. And we should all be in this together. And I was just saying to him after his contribution is that there has to be membership. There has to be a franchise where that fund, where everybody together can help finance the research that is necessary and compile that data that we can all use it together. So where within each country we are lost in our structures, we can learn from each other. And as the chairman for the Caribbean Tourism Organization, matter of fact, I see my general secretary here, would like to recognize him. And this is something we're going to put on the agenda, because I think that all members of our organization should have such a structure so we can be prepared, particularly within the Caribbean. Of course, I would suggest this to be across the world. If you think about the comparison of sustainability and resilience, sustainability is about protecting your asset. Resilience is about protecting or managing your asset is sustainability. Resilience is about protecting it from outside sources, which is a totally different world. And I'm so glad that the attention is being equally shared on resilience and not only sustainability, because all of the talk about, environmentally friendly building, setbacks, renewable energy and all that, that's management. Resilience is about protections from things to happen. And there has to be equal, if not more, I dare say, discussion and analysis about that, so we don't have the losses that we've had for our people and our stakeholders across the world. I mean,
when you think about it, there are very few surprises here. We can identify crisis in fuel, crisis in supply chain, crisis in political conflicts and terrorism, crisis with pandemic and those to come. And of course, what you just mentioned, climate change and sustainability.
I think we've been dealing with it for some time. It's just never been structured. Yeah. I mean, we've been dealing with these forever. Everything that you highlighted here, each country has done it in some way, shape, or form, but it was just never structured and analyzed from a theoretical standpoint of how you prepare and deal with it. This is about learning from each other and analyzing the data, and I love it. I can't wait to be able to sit with the minister and say that the Cayman Islands can be a part of this journey together and help with some of the funding as well, because it's essential not only to the Caribbean, not only to Africa, but my member states and the CTO, the French, the Dutch, the Spanish. Like, we have to bring everybody in the world on board with this because it's that big of a deal.
You're talking about lessons learned and, most importantly, lessons applied, which brings me back to an example going back to 2013 in Nairobi. A previous administration, I say that in due respect to Minister Malanda, but at the shootout, it was clear that no one was in charge. There was no one voice of communication to the outside world. No one was letting anybody know what was happening. And I went up to the State House and I said, I need to talk to the president. What is being done here? And the answer I got back is, come back later when it's all settled. Right? I think things have changed, Minister Malanda, in terms of your internal communications. Just go ahead and speak.
Thank you very much. Yes, things have changed, and I'm very honored again to share the practices of Kenya on this floor. It's a great honor to us to share where we've come from in terms of crisis and disruptions. And indeed, in 2013, yes, we had the bomb blast happening in one of our malls, and at that time, I think we were not prepared as a country. And so we tried to approach it in a silo approach, which did not work by then until we had to engage multifaceted and multi-ministerial approach that finally worked. But I want to talk about the new regime that I'm part of and the government that came in August last year. The greatest thing that has happened to our country is that we've seen a transition since independence of Kenya for a deputy president to rise straight to power to be a president. And therefore, this is a deputy president who was there in 2013, and he had an experience of 10 years in power, and now he is the president. And so he's seen quite a lot of disruptions in our country. And therefore, when he assumed to power, he took us together, and he took us for a retreat, and we were discussing about delivering as one. Delivering as one in terms of sectorial approach, and also as a whole government to deliver together. And what this means is that if you look at the Ministry of Tourism, where I am today, I'm supported by so many enablers, be it transport. For anybody to reach any park in our country has to use, a good road. For my wildlife in the parks, they need water. And therefore, I have to work together with the Ministry of Water. I have again to work with the Ministry of Environment in terms of restoration of our forests in the parks. I have also to work with the Ministry of transport in terms of, accessibility to the airports and all that. And therefore, as a country, we've taken what you're calling delivering as one government. And we're using the multi-sectoral approach where we are combining similar ministries like the natural resources ministries that are handling natural resources, where I fall because of wildlife, and other ministries like environment, like mining. We're coming together and coming up with plans that we are implementing together. And therefore, I think for us, this is one of the best practices that we are seeing is unlocking, and it's actually synergizing quite a lot of the efforts that we've done. And we are really doing a lot of exploits in terms of implementation of our plans and our policies together. And again, it's a playground where anyone can operate in any sector, and they can actually deliver as government. Whether I'm a Minister of Tourism or somebody else in Ministry of Transport can play the role that I play and still deliver. And therefore, for us, collaboration has been a key issue, has been a key theme in Kenya, and we are seeing it work. Thank you.
There's also the other ministry, which we haven't talked about, the Ministry of Finance. Anybody remember that? Okay, good. Ministry of Finance, Minister Kareng, I'll start with you. At a certain point, someone's got to pay for this, right? Yes. So to what extent are they recognizing now the global importance of tourism resilience in order to fund you to the point where you can actually be better prepared?
I must say that as we go around the globe attending global conferences that speak to environmental issues, that speak to global strategies, for climate change reactions, and the president goes this way, I go this way, the Minister of Finance is always on board. And in our national planning machinery and processes, the Minister of Finance is aware of the need to inculcate environmental issues and resilience issues, by ensuring that when we make proposals on climate change response, responses, on capacitation of our institutions and our sectors. Those, strategic focus and thematic areas are the Minister of Finance's speaking notes when she presents the budget. It's a she, by the way, when she presents the budget. So the budget, in terms of how it's formulated and how it's designed and how it is actually driven by the mindset of ensuring that the sustainable development goals are linked with our national development vision and our national development plans, and the thematic areas, including also one thematic area, which is a sustainable environment. They are built in the national development plans. And the National Planning Commission is there to ensure that all these thematic issues are embedded and inculcated and mainstreamed in the budget. We don't have sufficient funding, but at least there's consideration that Minister Kering runs a very sensitive and a needful ministry, so we must make sure that we can avail resources for that. So the budgeting processes do cater for that. We also have special funds, that we get levies from, tourism, and we have a plastic levy and, National Environmental Fund, which are government funds through the ministry that we fund other critical actors in that. And those are part of the budget allocations. And I must say that we are aware in terms of national planning processes of this.
Now, I don't know if you're aware of this, but you just made news today. You announced that your finance minister is always on board.
Yes, she is. I
just thought right? That's a breaking news story. Anybody else have finance ministers on board? Minister Brian?
Well, always. He's my closest friend, but also on board with the government's policies in respect to environment. I must say that I'm proud to say that the government that we have in the Cayman Islands is the most pro-protection to the environment and sustainable than we ever had in our country's history. Sometimes to some business people's dislike, I must say. But outside of the funding from government, I think we're forgetting some very important stakeholders. Those who make the money off of this business, they have to play their part too, because governments usually represent mostly, I'm not saying only, but mostly the people, the human part. The business part is a priority as well, and they pay their taxes too. But the strategies that we're talking about to ensure the industry upon which they make the most profits, they have to play their part by being involved in this. And I go back now to the CMC, where I think partnerships and memberships where they can fund and be a part of it, because you can't operate this vision, this plan, this way forward without them, because they're going to be the key individuals to help trade to come back, to figure out strategies of getting airlines going, getting hotels operational, get the employees going. All the factors to prevent these disruptions have to involve the major stakeholders in it, whether it's restaurants, hotels, airlines, attractions, and so forth, and the like. So I think we can't only leave it on the research individuals and government, but force the stakeholders. For example, in the Cayman Islands, we have the Cayman Islands Tourism Association. When I go back home, I'm going to have an upfront conversation to say, where are you on this? What is your part? How are you playing? Because we can't take only the burden to protect and plan for recovery for your business to make a profit only, even though they are taxpayers.
Well, you bring up a very interesting point. We have some private sector members here today as well. And Adam, I won't put you on the spot. Hey. But what you're really saying, if I interpret this correctly, is that the private-public partnerships have been pretty good in recovery. They haven't been pretty good in anticipation.
Exactly.
And do we have similar agreements here from the other ministers?
Yes, we do.
You can just speak. We can hear you.
Speak into it.
Just hold it. It's got it.
Yes, we do. And for us in Kenya, actually, we're just going through a disruption. We're going through the longest drought that we've ever seen in our country. And I think this is one setup or disruption that has seen us bring on board the private sector. And for the first time, to sit with the government. Initially, we've been sitting the government on the other side and the private sector on the other side. And I think this is one area that we are cooperating very well. And actually, we're doing a lot of funding that is coming from the private sector actually to fund the drought activities and the relief food, and also the the water tracking in our national parks. Again, we are seeing a lot of collaboration in the area of climate change, where our president has also declared that we are going to plant 15 billion trees in the next 5 years. And we're seeing so many private sector and companies coming in and picking like 1 million trees, giving their contribution towards greening our country. And therefore, there's a collaboration in terms of private and government.
You know, it's interesting. We talk about two things, which is a hindrance to both resilience and growth, and that is fear and perception. And for example, and I'll give you some very current examples. If I said to friends of mine today, I'm going to Port-au-Prince, you know what they'd say to me? Are you crazy? They would say, be careful, right? I'm not done yet. Hold on. The same thing would have happened after the shootout in Nairobi. The same thing actually happened on a smaller scale, Minister Kreng, after the elephant situation, because the communication that was coming out was that elephants were being killed. You may remember that, right? So I guess the question is, to what extent is that fear the block, that perception the block for you to do the growth you absolutely need to do on all these levels?
Definitely the fears, the perception block the goal in the destination. As you say, when some people want to go, there was a lot of warning on Haiti. There's not a warning on Port-au-Prince. They say Haiti. So when people call some tourists wants to go to Haiti or to Cape Haitian, they will say, oh, it's Haiti, don't go there. But we have to work with the country on the warning they to put the warning locally. Yes, we do have some issues in Port-au-Prince, but in the other part of Haiti, as I said, Cape Haitian or in Jacmel, so okay, the insecurity is not the same. So we were working on that with all representative of the countries that put this warning on Haiti. To speak about what you just said about the finance, Ministry of Finance, we does have the same problem in Haiti where the interest between ministries is not the same. So we have to convince them, work with them, make them understand. What I did recently, for Labadie, for example, there's a community needed, they need some infrastructure. So we went there, I went there with the Minister of Finance and Minister of Transport to show them what's the urgent need for those people that have to, the port cruise you have there, the revenue has to contribute to change the life of those people. So we completely agree, and we're going to put a fund together with the private sector. It's going to be a PPP, a private sector, and the government. We're going to put fund together to implement some social project to help those people. So I think when we talk, when we put all things on the table, we can work together.
Minister Malonza, oh, sorry, Mr. Kreng.
I think it is natural to expect that people will have some fear and uncertainties about a place, because with tourism, you are getting people from a place they know, they've lived, they've grew up in, to a place they don't know, because it's a whole issue of discovering and experiencing, new things that they do not know. So, but there is genuine perceptions that might be negative based on the truth, but some are not. But what do we need to do? Communicate the facts. With Botswana, we always communicate the fact that we are a country that has good governance. We have got the rule of law. You are safe when we are in Botswana. And I must tell you, in 2021, just when we are expecting that we are coming out of COVID, and then Omicron came, and Botswana was the first country that identified the Omicron after the genomic sequencing that was done. And immediately the world shut up. People had to return from Johannesburg in South Africa and go back home. And we were actually literally punished for discovering during Omicron, and the fear was that, oh, COVID is there, COVID is there. But what we do is to ensure that we give the right facts and we communicate the right facts. You are safe. And when we say that, we mean it. Secondly, when people visit Botswana and they get that experience, we want to actually improve through your assistance that experience, to be packaged so that you can hear from your fellow American. You can hear the truth from your fellow Jamaican. I was there. I know it's safe. So then we get, to encourage each other on the right facts. But media communication and packaging the right story is quite key.
I'll get to that in a second. Mr. Bryan.
You know me, I like to be controversial, so I'm going to put something out there.
Let it rip.
We got to recognize that the geopolitics of the world, money is floating everywhere. And some of these bad press are not just happen to happen. They're intentional. That's how they control the global markets and countries and the exploitation of certain locations. So what I'm about to say is that we have to investigate that as well to ensure that we understand what's happening behind closed doors when they're trying to undermine certain countries. I may be from the Cayman Islands, and thank God for his blessings on my great nation, great island. But I feel it for my ancestors in respect to Africa, because we all know that the resources have been ripped and continue to be infiltrated within certain mechanisms politically and corporations and connections to politicians to continue to undermine. When you know that there's no good reason, there's no difference between a shooting in New York City or a shooting in Brazil than a shooting in Africa. But yet still, there seems to be concerted effort to continually negatively expose certain countries. And until we get to that and understand that there is a game of the bigger picture, we'll never really be able to fight it. I'm not sure if you can fight it, because money is a lot more powerful than you think.
Minister Malonza, I just want to get to her for 1 second.
Yeah, thank you.
Just hold that mic and it works. Just hold it. You got it.
Thank you.
There you go.
Sorry for that. Thank you very much. I think I'd want to do a rejoinder from what the minister is talking about, geopolitics that do play actually in the world. And I've seen that play in Kenya. In just a few days ago, there was, security alerts that keeps on coming, and some of them are not even true. And for me, how we've gathered and ourselves as a country is the messaging that you project out there, the communication that you give, the branding that you give your country. And the other thing that we've done as a country is bilateral relationships. We build very strong bilateral relationships across the world. And this is really helping Kenya. And Kenya is being seen in the right perspective, even with these alerts. But again, I would say that also it takes a country to quickly, move in with the right communication. And I remember that was pulled within even hours, because our ministers, projected the right scenario of Kenya. And I think the airlines just pulled out, and of course they apologized. And therefore I want to say, coming on the issue of financing and the minister of finance being at the center of it, Kenya, we've developed regulations, and we have what we call Finance Management Act that has placed the Minister of Finance at the center of all the operation of and matters regarding regulations on finance. And actually in every committee that is discussing about finance, there must be a representative from the office of the Minister of Finance. Therefore, is very cooperative, and of course we've seen a lot of funding through, collaborative moves that are coming to our ministries, and especially the Minister of Tourism, that is actually a productive ministry. Thank you.
You had something to say. Go ahead.
In addition to what my colleague my homologue says, ministers, regarding communication, you have to work also with the local media. That's the first that released the news. And in Haiti, for example, they were their focus is on politics. So what all news they are releasing is around politics. They're not thinking about tourism, attract tourism. So we have to work with the local tourism media to put them in the frame of tourism and to let them understand and know that the news they are releasing can be wrong to their country. So that's, I think, the strategy we can work with the media.
You know, Minister Krang brought something up, and so did Minister Bryan, that I want to address. We have a number of members of media in the room today. I see Raj back there from the BBC. I don't pretend to speak for them, but I'm going to ask them to get involved if they'd like to. And this is this. It's a media question for all of you, me being a member of the media. And that is, who speaks for you? Meaning, is there one voice in your country? Is there a credible, trusted voice that the media can go to know? Because with all due respect, and please understand it is with all due respect, when you know what hits the fan, the last person I want to hear from is the Minister of Tourism. And the reason for that is your job is to promote tourism. Who is speaking for you when you have a crisis, either anticipating it or reacting to it?
I must say that, and I was going to make this point earlier, just to buttress what my colleagues were saying. Within the space of media, there is always media that is for you, and there's media that is also advancing a different agenda that is actually in opposition of what you do.
Right, but I'm not asking about the media. I'm asking who's speaking for you.
I'm getting there.
Okay.
I'm getting there. I speak for myself, and we speak as government through government communications. That is the anchor. But within the private sector, private media, we do have friends. I've made sure that I have friends in the media, private media, that speak for me. They want the right narrative. They ask me for content. And what do? We take them to the sites to go and see and to get content for themselves. So who loves us will speak for us every time.
Yes.
Thank you very much. The situation for Kenya, actually we have what we call a government spokesperson who speaks on behalf of the country. But when it gets to the ministerial level, every minister in our country is the spokesperson of the ministry. So in case of disaster, in case of any question, the minister then at that level becomes the spokesperson of the ministries. But of course, we build a very good relationship with both international and local media. And we operate very well. Of course, we have in my ministry what we call the Kenya Tourism Board. That is actually the agency that markets Kenya. That is actually the voice again in my ministry that speaks to the world about Kenya in terms of marketing Kenya as a premier destination.
In the Cayman Islands is obviously our leader, our premier, the Honorable Wayne Panton. And anybody he allocates that responsibility to. And I would encourage any media who wants to speak to us, we're always an open book. But I think it's important that we differentiate the different types of media that we have, and that you should not, with this negative brush, paint everybody, because particularly the media within the tourism story exposure have been awesome and been good to the Caribbean particularly. There are journalists who do this every day about travel news, and they don't get into that fluff. Matter of fact, usually they're the ones who help us mostly to mitigate the negative perceptions because they're intimate with our jurisdictions. It's more the mainstream, and I ain't gonna call any major networks, but...
Oh, come on.
No, I'm not gonna do that because I still need them myself. but the truth of the matter is that what we see is a decay of journalistic principles over time due to the advancements of technology, whereby 20 years ago, the news was the source of information that you depended on and that you can rely on. As a result of the advancements of technology, Google and Wikipedia and so forth, nobody goes to them anymore, so they had to learn to survive. And then they forced themselves to look at things that were hot button, click button topics. And unfortunately, because of human behavior, negativity moves a lot faster than positivity. And I don't think there's any way for us to get around that other than being better human beings, have a more moral compass individually. That's why I like focusing with journalists who focus on tourism specifically, because they sell our story a lot better. But networking, having diplomatic relations, Maybe that's a cue for me to
No,
shut up.
go ahead.
Hold the mic like this, okay. You have to have a lot of diplomacy here, and one person who is a good guide on this, and I have to say, he's just a superstar, Mr. Edmund Bartlett. Every single week of the year, you will see him in the media. No doubt.
By the way, that's either very, very good or very, very bad.
No, it is very good,
Okay,
because
good.
everything I see he does is positive, and he makes sure he has relationships. He has a relationship with you and many of the media who are here, and that's important, because until you fully understand what he represents, can you only feel morally obligated to say, I have to really report the truth. I'm not giving you second-hand information. It's first-hand information because I'm intimate with it. And we all, as leaders within our jurisdiction, have to have a stronger relationship with the media in order for them to respect us. So I take his lead in that respect. And any media in the house wants to talk to me, let's have coffee outside after.
Before we end it, I just want to suggest one change of word of what you just said. It's not about selling your story. It's about telling your story.
Very true.
And if you miss that distinction, you repeat the problem.
Well, but let's not get away from the fact that everybody here needs to make $1. Everybody had to get...
You'll make more money if you tell it than if you sell it.
That's true, but think about it. Which media do you know does it totally free anymore? You had to pay for your ticket to come here. How is that covered? How do you pay for your internet website? How do you pay for all that? There is... For us to ignore the reality of revenue would be a silly mistake.
Oh, I'm not telling you to ignore it.
Okay.
I'm just saying redefine it to the point where it doesn't hurt you.
Okay, fair enough. I'll take that.
Good. Are we going to have coffee later, too?
Of course we are.
On that note, we're a little bit out of time. I want to thank our distinguished panelists, the ministers from Haiti, from Kenya, from, of course, Botswana, and the Cayman Islands. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you very much, Peter. Thanks to all our ministers, Minister Francois, Minister Malonza, Minister Kereng, and Minister Brian. Thank you very much.